actually think Voldemort's one of the best characters ever. Like, he's a really good bad guy. And I used to not see that. I used to think that he was just two-dimensional and stupid and just, he just represents evil, blah, blah, blah. But, plenty of people who will shit on J.K. Rowling for Voldemort will praise Tolkien, despite the fact that Sauron is, we know even less about Sauron than we do about Voldemort, but it's the same kind of idea. They do both represent evil, but Voldemort is such a true character because he resents his father. His father is his parent who had agency. His father, interestingly enough, Voldemort despises his father for his weakness, and Voldemort is weak. That's what's revealed in that last scene of the last book when you see Voldemort, and he is this, for what he really is, he's this deformed, helpless child that's just always afraid. It's just fear and hatred. That's the thing that's inside of you that you have to kill, right? So, and that is literally true in Harry Potter, that Voldemort is part of Harry. So in order to address the original sin that is Salazar Slytherin, that is the serpent's influence on Hogwarts, in order to address that original sin, Harry has to destroy that within himself. Thank you to Symphysis for pointing that out. That is what's going on. So Voldemort represents the collective sin of the wizarding community. And he's a mirror of the sin of the individual as well as the community as a whole. And, it's really interesting the way that evil is described in Harry Potter. The wand is a symbol of agency. Muggles in Harry Potter effectively have no agency. They're effectively animals. They don't have the wand. They don't have magic. And evil in Harry Potter despises the Muggles. They hate the Muggles. Whereas good in Harry Potter, like Dumbledore, has a lot of respect for Muggles. Like Dumbledore loves Muggles. They call him, that's like a slur they call Dumbledore, is like a Muggle lover. And I think it reflects on Dumbledore's wisdom and his gratitude and his appreciation for nature, because Muggles are that step below. They're the soil from which the wizarding community has blossomed, right? They're the same species. It's never said directly in Harry Potter that, they are the same they're both humans. They never flat out say that, but it's true. So the wizards in Harry Potter, the witches in Harry Potter, are an outgrowth of the Muggles, and they come to resent the Muggles. The evil ones do, anyway. They come to resent Muggles for their ineptitude, for their helplessness, in a sense. And, the magical community has agency. So when you choose evil, it goes hand in hand with this resentment for that helplessness that Muggles have. It's like they resent that vulnerability. And it's really interesting because you do see that in narcissistic types and psychopathic types where they resent vulnerability. They hate it. So they don't accept vulnerability in other people. They see it as weakness. And that's exactly true for Voldemort. Voldemort's either a psychopath or a malignant narcissist. And he and the other Death Eaters resent that weakness. They resent that vulnerability that Muggles have. It's really interesting. And, Voldemort's followers are called Death Eaters. Death Eater, right, that's an inversion. It's a really, J.K. Rowling, or whoever goes through it, I don't know, very sophisticated series. Death Eaters. So what is it to say Death Eaters, right? Like when you eat, when you and I eat, we are eating life. It's the way it works. You're eating a plant, you're eating an animal, you're eating life. So Death Eaters, that's an inversion, right? It's a classic inversion. And what does Satan do? What does the devil do? He inverts. He turns things upside down. Life is death, dark is light. Killing your baby is reproductive health. Dying alone and miserable, it's pride. Like all of these inversions. So, but Voldemort is this weak, he's the embodied weakness of the magical community. And yeah, there's a lot to him. And his relationship with his father is really interesting. So the relationship with your father dictates your experience of God. That's why we talk about your father in heaven as God, right? I've said before, like the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, that your father is like the part, this is where Harry's scar is, right? Your father is like your higher mind. He is the progenitor of the higher mind in a sense. So your relationship with your father tells so much about what your relationship to God will be like. That's one of the reasons it's so important that Harry's parents are dead in the books, because Harry has no earthly parents, and yet he is a good person, and yet he is a strong person. Voldemort resents his father for leaving his muggle mother. His father had the agency. His father was a wizard, and he left his muggle mother to die in the orphanage where Voldemort was born. And Voldemort detests his father. It's unclear whether it's a sense of entitlement, what it is. I don't know. I'm gonna have to think about that more. But so Voldemort is scared. Voldemort is weak. He resents his father because his father didn't come save him, and as a result, Voldemort grew up in this oppressive orphanage where he felt helpless. So Voldemort is the part of you that resents God because of the times that you felt helpless, because of the times that you felt scared. The part of you that resents creation, that resents the creator because of the fear, because of the vulnerability. And, Voldemort, his name means death wish. It's a death wish for others as well as for the self, because spiritually speaking, you can't have one without the other, really. Just like you can't lie to other people without lying to yourself. There's this spiritual truth to that. Voldemort is this scared, vulnerable embodiment of the child that wants to destroy the world because of its fear. Another interesting thing about Voldemort is that his name is Tom Riddle, right? So Tom, common English name. He's a common man in a sense. She could have named him, if Voldemort's first name had been Rubius, or it had been some grand Skeletor, like if he had some real fancy sounding first name, they chose a common name, or she chose a common name for a reason. Tom. He's the common evil, right? And then his last name is Riddle, which is really interesting because evil is this sort of alchemical puzzle. It's this sort of riddle, right? So it's just, there's so much to think about there. Right? He's this riddle. And then when he appears to Ginny Weasley in the second book, he's a very well written character. I never appreciated it before, but he is. He says he's telling Harry how, like, oh yeah, I've been talking to Ginny through this diary, you know, through it's like a an analog chat room essentially, where she writes her thoughts in this diary, and the diary writes back to her, and that's Tom Riddle, that's Voldemort writing back to her, slowly manipulating her and controlling her. And he says to Harry, you know, when I told Ginny that I was going to have to bring her into the chamber and she would die, she became really upset and she was crying a lot and she became very boring. That's the way he says it. She became very boring. Because when you're just obsessed with power, you don't care about other people's. You're in that survival mode. You're in that fear state, right? Other people's emotions when they're about to die are very boring to you. So Tom Riddle, Voldemort, interesting stuff. The nature of evil, right? The nature of the ultimate weakness.